Eco-anxiety has taken a while to emerge as a common part of our vernacular. It's something that can go unseen and can be silent, yet today is screaming for and demanding our attention. You may have heard of the term eco-anxiety, you might like the term, you might not, but either way this term is really the beginning of a much larger conversation about how we're impacted by climate change and how we relate to it in return. Over the last 12 months, teamed up with Landcare, I've met with groups across Victoria's East Gippsland to discuss people's feelings about the natural world, climate and community. It wasn't that long ago that these communities were heavily affected by overwhelming bushfires. I've listened to stories of loss and collective frustration, and I was also truly humbled by efforts to connect with community and move on. There is so much that I learned from these groups, and these videos are just a snippet of the various topics touched on. Let me state from the outset, I'm not an expert on ecology. I'm not a climate activist, nor am I looking to convince anyone as to the reality of climate change or ecosystem collapse. I know that depending on what media you consume, you'll form your own opinion on the matter, and that there are many ways to think about our future. I'm not trying to sell you on any ideas in these videos, I'm just checking if you want to play with some. As a clinical psychologist, I look for patterns about the human condition. So in these 5 short videos, I hope to offer in each one a pattern I'm seeing emerge in the conversation around climate change and our mental health, as well as some of the ways that I'm learning to work with these patterns. The hope is that you can use these videos as a resource to help ground you in conversations and in your own experience pertaining to the natural world, our future, and our changing environment. In our world today, it can seem as though change is happening at an increasingly rapid pace. Change in our technology and our ability to connect globally in the face and shape of our communities. Of course, according to the vast scientific literature, climate change is threatening to accelerate at an exponential pace, one that will very soon be beyond our capacity to have any control. And so a clear pattern emerging in our world is that more and more people are feeling validated by and align their experience with the term eco-anxiety. In 2015, the American Psychiatric Association made a point of defining the term eco-anxiety. A study commissioned by Friends of the Earth found that over 70% of 18 to 24-year-olds are more worried about climate change than they were a year prior. In 2019 alone, the Oxford word of the year was climate emergency, recorded as having a 4,290% increase in online searches from the previous year. For some, eco-anxiety may occur gradually, as they notice changes in the natural world and feel a growing sense of unease. For others, it may be a sudden realization triggered by a particular event or a news story. There's no one way to experience eco-anxiety. It is usually characterized by fear, hopelessness, and despair, though this characterization is just the tip of the iceberg. Eco-anxiety might represent grief and loss for the natural world. It can indicate a guilt or helplessness in the face of the environmental crisis. It can even manifest as a denial of climate change and a refusal to discuss anything climate change related, an avoidance response typically indicating anxiety. At its core though, eco-anxiety is a form of existential anxiety, a fear of our own mortality and the fragility of the world around us. It's a fear of the unknown, of what the future holds, and of our own powerlessness in the face of massive environmental challenges. But here's the catch. Eco-anxiety is not a diagnosable condition. Many theorists, psychologists, and writers state that eco-anxiety is actually a very valid, normal, and human response to the shifts seen in the natural world. It is an awakening to what is happening around us, an empathic response to the loss of habitat, communities, and species. Chair of the Human Development Program and university teacher in eco-psychology, Professor Laura Sewell writes that ecological self is one that is ideally translated into a radical awareness of interdependence, a recognition that to tread heavily on the earth is to tread heavily upon oneself. Yes, the rise of eco-anxiety does indicate that climate change is having an impact on our mental health. But it also signifies that we are reckoning with the loss of the natural world around us and developing, with some growing pains, an increased sense of human empathy. As so much change occurs around us, we need to adapt with it. And eco-anxiety may well be an excellent way for us to promote adaptation.